Everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Elden Ring and my first proper challenge video / full playthrough of this game. In this video, I'm going to be outing myself as a nerd while I beat Elden Ring as one of my favourite literary characters, Kaladin Stormblessed. If you're unfamiliar with Kaladin, I recommend reading the Stormlight Archive series, but just think Virgil, but a good guy and with no swords. As Kaladin, I have to limit myself weapon-wise by sticking solely to the things he's used throughout the books, those being small to medium shields, daggers and throwing knives, and of course, spears. And seals, but I don't really count those as weapons. Additionally, to be most accurate to the story, I'm limiting myself to the more basic weapons from these classes, so no Reduvia or Bolt of Grandsax. I also allowed myself free use of Ashes of War, within reason, and temporary buffs to mimic Kaladin's abilities while juiced up on Stormlight. Finally, I need to beat all 15 Remembrance bosses, and as befitting Kaladin's character, help every NPC I can. I picked Prophet as my starting class, as from memory it's the only one that actually comes with a spear, and then discovered that Elden Ring has a pretty harsh character limit when it comes to character names. I then spent way too long trying to make my character look roughly how I imagined Kaladin to look, and started the game. I got 2 shot by Grafted Scion, and then moved on to the open world. My first proper death was rather unfortunate, so I decided to move on to more important things. I gained access to Torrent, which I would be using in this run despite the fact that Kaladin does indeed hate horses. He does still ride them, so that means I'm allowed to. I'm not making this run longer, just for the fun of it. No, I don't want to walk everywhere, thanks. This is my replacement for flying, because, you know, he would have just done that otherwise, yeah. I met with Roderica, who was bemoaning her lack of courage in the face of Godric's grafting. There wasn't a whole lot I could do for her right then and there, so I took the responsibility of protecting these jellyfish off her hands and continued on my way. I then encountered Alexander, who had gotten himself stuck and required my help to get himself out of the hole. I then got some free runes from Ukil, who, surprise surprise, is way easier on my 7th playthrough than my first. Before making my way down to Weeping Peninsula, where I met Irina, who asked me to deliver a letter to her father Edgar as he refused to abandon his duty to defend Castle Morn despite the hopeless situation. As I entered Castle Morn proper, I realised what had actually happened. The misbegotten servants, cursed beings fit only for servitude as taught by the Golden Order's regime, had rebelled against their human masters and taken the castle. And that made me think, did Edgar really deserve the protection I had come to give? I delivered Irina's letter to fulfill my promise to her, but refused to help either side, and left. Edgar and I would later find out the cost of duty.
If you see Irina, do tell her that her father will come for her once he's fulfilled his duty.
I didn't record myself getting the physic, but behind the Third Church of Marika is a teleporter which takes you to Dragon Barrow, which is just so much fun for my level of the game. Now, behind the Bestial Sanctum is yet another secret area where I could get my hands on a talisman that reduces my incoming damage by 10%, which would be really useful. All those deaths you just saw were thanks to Flying Dragon Grail, who, because of Dragon Barrow's high scaling, is a little bit harder than Akil. Eventually I just ran past to find another source of runes. These would come in the form of the Putrid Avatar, and while yes it does still one-shot me, it's a lot easier to kill as you can get it stuck in a loop by attacking it from behind and the left. After about 20 minutes of dying to this guy, all the while Catch Flame was taunting me from my spell slot, I managed to get the no damage run that I needed. Now that is a lot of spheres. I didn't kill Grail during this run because I felt like it was dishonourable and not at all protective of me to kill this mother of dragons who was just stuck to the ground and couldn't defend herself. I then went to Raya Lucaria and fought all these knights here. All of that was to try and get a Cuckoo surcoat, which, while it doesn't really resemble what Kaladin actually wears, is the closest thing I could get from memory to the blue uniform. After all that, I finally got around to fighting Margit, and while I am pretty over-leveled, I'm also really bad at fighting Margit, so it was actually a pretty fair battle. I haven't quite learned how to do lashings yet, okay? In Stormvale I got the Ash of War for Storm Assault, and I mean, the name is just perfect, but I also feel like it really suits Kaladin with the whole jumping and stalling in the air thing. This guy in a funny looking helmet said there was a shard bearer in here. Lopen, mate, you've gone too far. As usual, Godric was pretty easy. After Godric, I spent a while farming this banished knight in Stormvale Castle so I could get a spear. A spear would have more damage and reach than the short spear that I was currently using from the Prophet class, so I felt that this was an important upgrade considering these are the only two weapons I'm really allowing myself to use. If you're wondering why I didn't just kill Patches for the guaranteed +7 spear, it's because similar to Grail I felt that would be dishonourable, killing someone who'd already surrendered. I didn't know at this time that you could get that +7 spear by just joining Volcano Manor. So yeah, that's great. After that I upgraded my spear a bit and went to take down Starscourge Radahn. Or should I say Amaram, because, you know, the bow and the two blades and the purple light effects and the being consumed by a god thing. Yeah, Terrible comparison, I know. My first attempt was terrible, but on my second one I managed to get through all of Phase 1 hitless before getting two-shot in the dumbest way possible. I gave up on Radahn after that. Draconic Tree Sentinel's a much easier boss anyway, right? Ouch. How did that hit me? Okay, that's fair. I am really dumb. There we go. Through, I immediately turned around and went up this ash mount to fight. Honestly, I don't have a witty comparison for this guy, so I guess he can just be our mandatory Hoyd cameo. Yeah, they look close enough. Now, I know Serpent Hunter isn't one of the weapons I defined, but I've tried to fight Rykard before with basic weapons and it's not good. So I figured I'd make an exception. Plus, it is a spear technically, so yeah, let's just pretend it's like a really long sharp blade. After that I went to the, I don't know, Palladium at Carbranth to... Okay, I suppose now's the best time to get the Spelldrake Talisman. How did I die to this boss? With access to the rest of the academy, I grabbed the Glintstone Wetblade, which would come in very handy later. Unlike lore-accurate Yasna, this shard-bearing Scholar Queen was really easy to beat. It was then time for a rematch. With Radahn dead, I now had access to the underground sections of the game. Where I encountered the only hand that could kill Kaladin Stormblessed, his own. I guess Moash was right. After defeating four wrong character, I killed a moose. I would say more, but it was really easy because Bloodfane Blade is OP. So, with the Ancestor Spirit dead, we're now 5 out of 15 for our Remembrance bosses, which means we're a third of the way through completing this challenge. With all that done, it was finally time to enter Urithiru. Now I know there's not much resemblance, but I needed some kind of comparison to make. So now it's time for, I don't know, Nail? Honestly, that actually kind of makes a lot of sense now that I think about it. I didn't know who to compare Morgott to, so I kind of just threw out Nail because Morgott has both a static main weapon and a changing living shard blade weapon. But now that I kind of think about it, it does actually fit with the whole, loosely, with the whole backstory thing of like Morgott's utter dedication to the Golden Order and like Nail's obsession with the law and everything. So yeah, I'll take it. Hopefully this fight goes better for me than it does for, spoilers, Kaladin's fight in Wind and Truth. Yeah, that was a bit of a unfortunate event. Yeah, anyway, Morgott's honestly one of my favourite boss fights. They really did get away with putting two banger bosses within like 200 meters of each other, which I'm glad for. So yeah. This fight was way harder than it should have been because I guess I'm underleveled and not used to using spears. Yeah, also I'm out of practice with Morgott. Anyway, yeah. I don't know why I'm narrating this. I didn't narrate many of the other fights. Just watch the video. With Morgoth dead, I now had access to the Horn-Eater Peaks where... oh...
You were about to sacrifice something precious, the life of a fair maiden, that you would toss into the fiery forge, only so that you may be lord. What a horrible thing to ponder. Your ascendancy requires her sacrifice. Whether she wishes it or not, chosen tarnished and would be lord. Dare to tread the path of true rigor. Spare the poor girl and singe your own flesh in her stead. If you are prepared to show resolve and attain lordship through righteous hardship, then heed the words of I, Shabriri. You inherit the flame of frenzy. Your flesh will serve as kindling, and the girl can be spared, setting you on the righteous path of lordship, the path of the Lord of Chaos. Burn the Erd Tree to the ground and incinerate all that divides and distinguishes. Ah, may chaos take the world. May chaos take the world!
Now this is something that I considered. Do I do the Frenzied Flame ending? In doing so, Melina would survive. She wouldn't sacrifice herself so that I could progress. But at the same time, humanity would be destroyed. This was a hard choice, and the line "eliminate all that divides and distinguishes" really does appeal. But in the end, I chose the path that would protect the most people. Right before Fire Giant, I remembered to grab Flame Protectant for that sweet 60% damage negation. Alright, this should be pretty easy. That was Rock's fault. I feel like I haven't addressed the limitations of spears all too much throughout this run. While their range and poise is very good, their pure DPS is pretty bad. And so against a big tanky boss like Fire Giant, where range and poise isn't that important, spears really do suffer. And so I took a break from Fire Giant to fight a far more bullshit boss in a very bullshit castle. Now, Niall's a very fun boss because he has minions with very fun movesets, and while a spear is good for taking care of them, it's still really annoying. And provided you can kill the minions, Niall himself is not a particularly easy fight. Granted, a very repetitive one, but he can do a lot of damage. Added to that, the run back is just long enough to be annoying. After all that, I went back to Fire Giant with a secret weapon. The spinning strike Sash of War more than makes up for the spear's low DPS, and allows me to punish the Fire Giant's attacks far better. Also, which Stormlight character does the Fire Giant get to be? I reckon the Pursuer, because he's wearing his hair as clothes. Toward the end of the fight, I decided to summon Alexander. Because I had helped him out earlier, he now wanted to assist me in this fight. And so at the Forge of the Giants I had to accept that there are those who I cannot protect.
Thank you for guiding me here. The one who walks alongside Flame shall one day meet the road of destined death.
Now that I had finally reached Carbranth, I decided it was finally time to stop putting off the Valiant Gargoyles boss. Now if you're unfamiliar with this boss, let me explain just why it's one of the worst in the game. So, Gargoyles are terrible enemies in boss fights on their own, and this one has two of them. Not to mention, they also have their own special attack, which is a very long range, and I mean absurdly long range, poison that does insanely high damage, and also, did I mention that there's two of them? After dying a few times to them, I decided that, well, yeah, I could improve my knowledge of their movesets and my spatial awareness. I'd rather just grab a new secret weapon.
This is the other Hallobrand. How did you... Oh, my utmost thanks.
For whatever reason, instead of going straight into Fortisax, I decided to start what would be my third gank fight in a row by now. Is this a bad time to mention that I've never properly fought the Godskin Geo solo before? I spent another hour dying to these guys, and most of it's irrelevant, as you saw everything that happened just then. But I did get one of the coolest sinks in Elden Ring. Vidolan and Renarin finally taken care of, I could at long last upgrade my spear to max. Now that I had access to the rest of Farum Azula, there are 4 important items that I could get. Golden Lightning Fortification is a buff that gives me a 60% resistance to lightning damage, which would come in handy for the 2 lightning-themed bosses. The Dragon Crest Shield plus 2 talisman is a direct upgrade to the one I picked up at the start of the game. And the Old Lord's talisman would make my incantations last for longer, which would mean I wouldn't have to worry about reapplying buffs as much. Finally, the Shard of Alexander is a gift from the Warrior Jar, as he wished to die an honourable death against a great warrior, who was apparently me. You really can't protect everybody, can you? Turns out past me was smart in not fighting Fortisax just then, because now with all these upgraded items I would have a much easier time of it. With all that done, it was time for the 2 bosses accessible through the consecrated snowfield. Hey, it's a surprise cameo from Palm from Mistborn Era 2. Mohg is honestly one of the best bosses in the game. Unlike with most bosses where the super delayed attacks feel just artificially difficult, Mohg's are a lot more natural as his weapon is very long and heavy. Not to mention the whole atmosphere and sound of this fight is just awesome. Alright, now it's time for the DLC. Haha. Just kidding, I'm poor. Now, before finding you-know-who, I had to grab the Dragon Crest Great Shield Talisman, which gives a whole 3% more damage negation than the one that I just picked up. Whoa, Shalana really wants my pooch this time. Now, remember when I grabbed the Glintstone Wetblade and said this would come in handy later? Well, Melania is very weak to frost. Now, Melania is one of my least favourite Remembrance bosses, and this might be controversial, but I genuinely consider her fight pretty bad. Mainly for the reason that I think they made it too hard. Now, call it a skill issue if you will, and that's fair, I'm pretty bad at the fight, but I have fought her 4 times, and twice in restricted runs like the one I'm currently doing. So I'd say I have more experience than the average player when it comes to judging this fight. It does kind of feel like they designed a good fight, like, you know, a tough fight, but fair, and then we're like, oh, we need to make this harder for the long-time fans. And so they added like a couple of absolute bullshit attacks, as well as the infamous heal-on-hit thing that she does. So yeah, I feel like the fight's difficulty is purely artificial, not to mention the fact that she has an absurd amount of health, as well as deals literally insane amounts of damage. But yeah, that's just my opinions on Melania. If you think differently, feel free to tell me. Now, I won't do a death montage for this fight really. If you want to see me die 108 times to Melania, then, well, you can watch my other video. After spending about 50 minutes dying to Melania, I decided to give up for now and go fight a slightly better boss. of all the bosses in the game, Malekith was not the one I expected to do first try. And so I returned to the blender for another 2 hours of punishment. With Shallan now out of the picture, I only had 4 bosses left to complete the challenge, those being Astel, to whom I was currently running, Placidusax, Hoaraloo, and of course the final boss. Oh hey, it's Dalinar. How you doing, sir?
Upon my name as Godfrey, the first Elden Lord. Now I fight as Hoaraloo. Warrior!
And so it was time for the final fight. I don't have much to say about this, except to tell you that my recording randomly cut out while fighting the Elden Beast in my successful attempt, but luckily I saw it in time and managed to restart. But aside from that, enjoy my fight with Kelsier. And I don't know what the Elden Beast can be, just pick any one of the Unmade. You know what, fuck it, the Elden Beast can be Brandon himself. And so it was done. The greed-stricken demigods had all been slain by my hand to restore the Elden Ring, and all I had to do now was reassemble it on the fractured goddess Marika. After that, I would be Elden Lord, bearing immense power as first of Marika's followers among the Golden Order, with absolute rule over the lands between. And yet, could I do it? Ascend to near godhood over the very order that oppressed the misbegotten for naught but their birth, the order which had repressed the merchants and those who live in death, that had massacred the fire giants in their conquest. Would I become faithful servant to Queen Marika, the woman who had shattered the Elden Ring, who had started the very war I now finished? Could I take the power and lose my conscience? What use is power if I can't even protect those whom I love? Taking this duty would merely extend the Golden Order's reign. Nothing could change for a world destined forever to acquiesce the same heartless goddess. The Elden Ring will be shattered again, wars will be fought amongst a new generation of demigods, and those who cannot protect themselves will fall. And so I left. Allow Marika to stay in the burning Erd Tree, impotent without the greater will whose vassal I had killed. Attempts to build a new world free of the Golden Order's discrimination, free of gods and outer gods alike. I'll protect the world in my way. And with that, this video is completed. It is 4 AM for me right now. I definitely didn't expect this video to go this far. As a quick disclaimer, this video was originally intended to just be a form of practice for future videos, as I've never done. That's like, I've done videos in this style before, but never this involved as I have with this one. So this was going to be practice for future videos, which I reckon would have gotten more attention and everything. But I didn't expect to go as far as I did with the editing and the ending there. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all later.